Normally, when we talk about Irish and Irish American history, naturally enough, we spend most of our time talking about events that happened in Ireland. And when we're not talking about events that happened in Ireland, sometimes we talk about Gettysburg, Washington, D.C., maybe New York, other places around the United States. But there's a pretty major Irish American event that occurred right here in our own Carnegie, Pennsylvania. I'm standing here, this probably is familiar to most of you, it's just down the road from the Ukes, Riley's Poorhouse, all the places we're familiar with. But exactly 100 years ago, a major event here happened between Carnegie's Irish community and the Ku Klux Klan. In 1923, the Ku Klux Klan was a very powerful organization. We associate the Ku Klux Klan with a lot of violence after the Civil War directed at African Americans. We may remember them from the 1950s and 60s when they opposed the Civil Rights Movement, and a lot of their violence was directed again at African Americans. But the Ku Klux Klan of the 1920s was a little bit different. To be sure, they still had a lot of violence against African Americans, but their primary target of their violence and their rhetoric of hate was immigrants, and particularly Catholic immigrants, and particularly Irish Catholic immigrants. And it was the growth of the Irish Catholic population in Carnegie that brought the Ku Klux Klan here 100 years ago this week. So Hiram Evans was a guy who was the self-styled Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, a very hateful, dark figure in American history. And he wanted to grow the Ku Klux Klan by targeting communities that had a large immigrant population, particularly a Catholic immigrant population. And to do that, he decided to stage a rally at Forsyth Farms over the hill just down the road from here. Many of you know that area, familiar with it today. 1923 holds a rally, August 25th. 25,000 Klansmen, Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, come, they burn a cross, the Ku Klux Klan symbol, on the hill overlooking Carnegie, Pennsylvania, right here. After the rally, 3,000 of them decide that they're actually going to march, and what they want to do is they want to build a cross and burn it outside of what was then St. Luke's Catholic Church, home church for many of the Irish immigrants here, which is right down that road here. Citizens of Carnegie, again, most of these people in this area, Irish Catholic, find out that the Klan is on their way coming. About 500 of the citizens of Carnegie say, Klan, not happening here in Carnegie, Pennsylvania. They march up this street and set up a barricade on this bridge here. Now this is the exact location of where the bridge was. This is a new bridge. It was built in 1979, I understand it, but it's the same location as the old bridge. I'm here off of 3rd Street in Carnegie. And so they build a barricade here to block the Klan from coming down. The Klan comes down, they're led by a car. The car is lit up with KKK. They're marching behind their banners. At this time, the Klan used American flags. They're chanting about how 100% American they are, and they're here to defend what they called white Christian American values. Allegheny County Sheriff's Department is not happy about this. The Allegheny County Sheriff's Department is also kind of torn between people who are sympathetic to the citizens of Carnegie trying to protect their homes, and some people who had Klan sympathies. So there was a deputy sheriff called John Dillon, that was his name. He came here as soon as the crowds met up, and he tried to keep them apart. He managed to succeed for about 30 minutes. The Klan had their rally around 7 o'clock. They marched down here around 9 o'clock. They meet around 9 o'clock to 9:30. They're throwing things at one another. Deputy Sheriff Dillon is trying to keep them apart. Eventually, he can't do so. He almost gets knocked in here into the creek, but eventually the Klan pushes the citizens of Carnegie down over this bridge. Again, the Klan were chanting we're 100% American. Citizens of Carnegie were chanting, you're 100% bastards. I got that one right. But the Klan managed to push down 3rd Street. And what I'm going to do now is that we're going to go over and head over to actually the target of where the Klan was, how far they pushed, and tell you what happened next. I'm at the intersection of 3rd Street and Barrett Way here, which is a great name for a road, outside of what is now St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Church, but at the time was St. Luke's Catholic Church. This was the suspected target of the Klan march that night 100 years ago. Again, they were suspected of wanting to burn a cross, if you can believe that, outside this Catholic church to show their hatred for Catholic immigrants and their desire to drive them out of Carnegie, which at that time was about 50% Catholic, new Catholic workers working the mills, working the railroad, working some coal mines, and the original kind of 50% of that was the native Protestant population, which was at the time somewhat uncomfortable with the growing immigrant community. So the Klan marchers made their way, pushing the protesters, the citizens of Carnegie, again, mostly Irish Catholic men, back to St. Luke's Church until they got here at Barrett Way and 3rd Street. At this time, shots rang out. We still don't know who fired the first shot. There's a lot of testimony that the Klan, we know that for certain the Klan brought weapons to the march that night. And we also know that the citizens of Carnegie also had weapons that night. Shots rang out, and eventually there was a shot here from Barrett Way that took down one of the Klansmen. He was a man from Washington County who had actually just been inducted into the Ku Klux Klan earlier that evening. The Klansman fell, and this kind of shocked the Klan's marchers back. And so eventually the citizens of Carnegie were able to drive the Klan out of Carnegie, and they fled back up to Forsyth Farms, across the bridge, and they took their wounded and they took the man that had been killed with them. Now, what is the significance of this? What is this result other than just an unfortunate event and scar on what we consider a wonderful American history? Well, the Klan used this incident as a fundraising and membership drive event. They turned the killed Klansman into a martyr. The stories in the Klan's newspapers are just unbelievable in their vitriol and hatred towards Catholics, and in particular the Irish. They denounce the citizens of Carnegie as shantytown Irish, using all sorts of very, very nasty terms, using terms like the N-word, calling the citizens of Carnegie mongrels, just terribly offensive stuff. But that was their ideology, that was their worldview, that's what they turned on the citizens of Carnegie. There was a man here who was eventually charged for killing the Klansmen. His name was Paddy McDermott. He was an undertaker here in Carnegie. If you're familiar with McDermott Funeral Homes, same family. To be fair, Paddy McDermott always denied that he had fired that shot that night. He was eventually charged because there was a lot of political pressure on some of the officials in the surrounding area to bring charges. No one in Carnegie would testify against Paddy McDermott, and he was eventually acquitted of the murder of the Klansmen that night. But this incident showed that the people of Carnegie, that our forefathers, in some instances maybe our great-grandfathers and our grandfathers, very literally were going to fight for their place in America. That they were here, they were going to say no to the hatred of the Ku Klux Klan. They were going to say no to the definition of what it means to be American just meant a white Protestant who had the ideology of the Ku Klux Klan. That this was a country that had a place for Catholics. That it was a country that had a place for the Irish immigrants that came here to build it with their own hands. So that's just a brief overview of the Irish American history that happened right here in Carnegie, Pennsylvania, that we, the brothers in AOH Division 32, are the very proud inheritors of this mantle and this tradition. So the next time the Ku Klux Klan comes to Carnegie, Pennsylvania, brothers of AOH Division 32, you are on notice. You have been warned that we have to step up and we have to act as our forefathers did. Slán.